Okay, we have a virtual match request. Going to be in a Collins lexicon. Let's go. Okay, going to be first to move here. And first thing we're going to look for is if there is something we could do to put the Z on the double. I don't think so. This is not the worst kind of leave, I guess, if we just have zip. Alternatively, something like prize. Hello, Netcat. Yeah, just having our quieter off-stream. Not quite as active usually as Mario Maker Day, but still hopefully interesting, so thanks for coming by. And yeah, it is an unusual hour. I have had some requests to run Mario Maker at this hour some of the time, which I used to do, but I'm not really able to make this hour very often anymore due to a whole bunch of conflicts, so still going to be doing the nocturnal, or in EU, breakfast stream for the most part, but I hope you're doing well. And yeah, we'll definitely be getting viewer levels going again this weekend, and possibly an additional stream of Mario Maker sometime between now and then. Not sure exactly when yet, but we crashed against a whole lot of puzzles the other day, so which were fun, but it was less successful than usual. So good to get some of that content in, though. I do hear a lot from puzzle people about finding it difficult to find streamers who really kind of engage with what they're doing. I mean, there are a few, but there's definitely a finite list. We have something here that's very close to Art Leno, which is the name of a streamer in Australia that I raid from time to time. And yeah, I started running a separate puzzle night mostly because it was increasingly difficult to fit in long levels like that, and they really do need time to breathe, I think. And I mean to do the same with some platforming levels that are sub 1% as well, because, you know, sometimes they just need a bit more of a dedicated session to push through. And so yeah, hoping to introduce some more of that content in the weeks ahead, and we'll see how it goes. And so, Netcat, I hope everything on the making side is also going alright. Let's see here. Kind of want to go something parallel down here. This really opens up the top. He took a long time on that turn by his usual standards, and so I think maybe he was searching for something better to do with the S. So let's see. Don't really want to be keeping all these L's, but it's not exactly the best rack to work with here. Maybe something like this. Not great. Ooh, not great at all, actually. And yeah, Netcat, online Scrabble has taken various forms in a long time. Actually, for the longest time, everybody was on this Java client that was made in Romania for many years, and a lot of people still play there. This is a comparatively new platform that launched in October. I'll just give you the link to it here. And a lot of the players have drifted over here since. The other thing, of course, is that due to the pandemic, a lot of the over-the-board play has not gone on for various reasons, namely that Scrabble is a game that brings together a lot of vulnerable and elderly people who constantly touch the same objects with their hands. And so the pandemic kind of put a stop to that for the time being, and so what wound up happening was that people took some initiative to build a better online scene, and so we've had some new software come in like this platform here. Yeah, I'm actually playing against one of the strongest players in North America right now. He's much, much better than I am, but, you know, there's just enough of an element of luck in this game that occasionally I do beat him. This game is not going well for me, though. I am in a terrible situation right now. I feel like I need to dump something like this, except I still haven't really solved the issue of all of the L's that I'm holding. Okay. Getting closer to something usable, but not quite. So yeah, we'll just hope that things kind of open up a bit. I really do need to do something about this duplicated L. Has been a problem for some time, but right now I don't really have very many scoring opportunities, so it's just a matter of kind of jostling around the board and trying to stay alive, basically. Sort of surprising that the score is as even as it is. Yeah, I'm really not happy with this play earlier. I don't think it kept the right set of tiles, but you know, that's one of those things that we can inspect at the end of the game. Okay, this is one of those famous all-vowel words that are in the international lexicon, which are still largely pretty weird to me because I'm fairly new to playing in this dictionary. And we'll see what we can do with that. I feel like something like an L play going down here might not be the worst idea, but don't want to dump all consonants. That would be kind of bad. Something like, I don't remember if it was just Lati or also Loti. And it's one of those things that you end up learning the hard way sometimes. What do I even want to keep? Right now, 5 A's in a pool, 4 O's. Yeah. Or maybe something else in that position. Or even just something like this. Only scores 8 points, kind of terrible, but the idea is to try to just get out of trouble here and open up the board a bit. That's almost certainly a terrible play, given the possibility of a big consonant bomb down here. But yeah, in general, this has become a slowly more volatile board. We've drawn another... no, we've kept the other L, rather. That's still usable here, except, of course, that would just leave this massive spot vulnerable, so I don't think that's going to be the most useful lane. This is probably not as dangerous as it looks. The main thing you have to watch out for is something like a heavy consonant followed by an O, because I-O is a 2-letter word in this dictionary. And yeah, Netcat, players at this level, all of them study Scrabble useful words quite a bit. So by Scrabble useful, I mean, you know, things that get rid of weird tiles and allow you to dig out of trouble, basically. When you have too many vowels, or when you have a whole bunch of U's at the same time, or things like that. So it's a good one to know because it's the only 4-letter word that is all vowels, I believe, and it's only in this dictionary, which is the international one. There is a smaller North American dictionary that I also play about half the time, and which I'm more familiar with. Seems like I'm actually close to something decent, but kind of difficult to see at this point. So yeah, that was a big 46-point play for my opponent just now, and so bad idea for me to be opening over there. But it's kind of difficult to see where to go with what I'm currently holding, so I'm just much too heavy on vowels myself. And yeah, I might even just have to do a vowel dump in my own right. You know, something like this, but I'm falling way behind now, having just moved and still trailing by 30 points. And still not really much closer to anything there. 74-point play for my opponent, so I'm in big trouble now. Yeah, I don't know if I see any potential for 7 or 8-letter words in this. I mean, I see a number of shorter words like, you know, violet and so on. I'm currently seeing if there's anything I can do through the R. And hopefully, you know, something that would actually put me in a better position. But right now the issue is that playing to the R this way would actually kind of close up the board and block off a lot of future opportunities. Whereas going somewhere like this, or liver or violet or something, I want to end with the L, I think, not with the V, because I want to keep the board usable for myself. And ending with the L is not the best, but ending with the V pretty much never happens. I don't know if there's anything better than that. Okay, drawing some of the heavy stuff at once. Interesting thing to look at in this lexicon is that J will fit in front of AI if I have some way to do a parallel with J. I currently don't have the right tiles to go down. I would need something like an O. And that's something that we should keep in consideration. Currently, the priority strategically should actually be getting rid of the Q. We have 2 U's still unseen, but QI, of course, is the most useful thing to do with that. OH is only going to take O at the end for Oho. And so that's not going to be very useful to me right now either. And now, of course, this has kind of killed the J idea. So we'll see if there's maybe something else I can do to play something useful, but I think this might be the best I can do right now. Dump to Q is still very consonant heavy, but I think that's just something we have to live with. Yeah. 80 points behind on my opponent's turn. That's not a good sign at all. Particularly because, of course, having done this, I just kind of closed off any possibilities down here, although that was never going to be a particularly great spot anyway, just given the possibility of comebacks down to triple. We might still be able to make, small plays here and there just to manage to rack, but I think, we might just be stumbling a bit much. So yeah, we'll see what we can do with this. Just considering other possibilities right now, we might be able to, play something with the Y down there, although that really locks up the board once again because of the placement of the V. And really still doesn't get me out of trouble when it comes to the letters that I'm working with. My best potential is kind of through to E here. Now with 2 blanks still unseen, SSS still unseen, maybe playing off a lot of tiles at once is, in fact, the right idea. So that's not the worst thing I can do. Scores decently. Still much too heavy on consonants, but at least we have some synergy between letters like the C and the H. For on my rack you see words like bunch. Notice still that the idea with the O on the right side of the board is still open on Oho. But yeah, we'll see what we can do with that. And just await my opponent's move. I'm thinking about the possibilities there, and don't see anything particularly good just yet. Also still thinking about the spot going to the T over here. Right now, of course, this is sort of an open lane. Yeah, obviously this, this was also going to be an issue with the S. Pretty sure OH does take an S. I always get some of them confused, but even in the other book, in TWL, there's something like, EH does not take S, and OH does, I believe. But yeah, now we're just getting kind of killed. And well, let's see what we can actually do here. Currently, the lanes that still have the most potential are down here and over here. We could always just make small plays, but the issue with that is that it doesn't get us out of trouble when it comes to the tiles themselves. So. Maybe something like that. No, it still doesn't get us out of trouble. The same kind of problem that we've been dealing with the whole time, which is just the rack management has been a bit of a disaster. Oh, here's an idea. Like this, 40 points. Okay. Okay, now we're in a significantly better position. Look at that, pinches. One thing that is very useful to know in this lexicon is ST. And so if this remains open, we have pinches on this lane. And my opponent's going to kill me anyway, but we're going to take it. Just very relieved to get, you know, any decent play at all off my rack. It's a struggle to even hit 300 points in this game. And yeah, I mean, this is quite obviously going to be a pretty big loss, but we'll just try to. Do what we can to preserve some dignity. I'm actually really happy with this play here. It did get rid of exactly what I wanted to dump. Currently seeing if I might have maybe any 6s down here. Failing that, well, who knows? Yeah, TI is a very annoying word because TI doesn't take anything in front. At least I don't think it does. But currently looking over here in case I have anything. And Cordial Snail, welcome. So yeah, Cordial Snail, as you can see in the top right corner, this is a game in the dictionary called CSW, or Collins, which is one that I don't know that well. But it's the one that has the weird words like EE and EUOI and so on. And so we're kind of learning as we go. We're learning by playing some of the best. But yeah, glad to see you come by. It's been interesting to introduce some of this content on a channel that is mainly a Mario channel, and to see, you know, how to interpret that content for people who are probably less familiar with the competitive side of this game. But yeah, it's very much a learning experience, as I can see here when I'm down by 140 points. I think, yeah, we have one tile in the bag. Depending on what my opponent has, you could have some kind of spectacular play, except no real positions to play them in. So I think at this point I just kind of preserve some dignity, take some points. Not going to be great, but yeah, we have a couple of 5-letter words here that won't fit anywhere. You know, edict and cited and so on. And so yeah, just getting into the endgame. Expressing bacchic frenzy. Very useful word to know for St. Patrick's Day when you're drinking your face off. Very, very useful to know indeed. Currently just... I think we just finish with this, and that's going to be it. Okay. Just gonna wish him a good game. And yeah, I don't know how long it is until the pairings for the next round, but we might have some time to take a look at the analysis board and see what kind of plays we missed. So let's just step through that. So we're just going to step through the game we just played and take a look at some of the suggested plays from the computer in case we missed anything particularly good. So every play in Scrabble has a certain face value of a number of points, and that's something that you kind of see in the first column here in boldface. So, you know, you play something like prize in this position, scores 38 points. But it also has a secondary value that's sort of associated with it, which is how things like a computer playing this would score the play internally in terms of how much it's valued. And that's kind of based on what tiles you keep as well. And it's a little easier to explain by example, but as you can see, I did consider prize. And yeah, you have some other words like that. Zip is not considered worth the sacrifice so much. but that's what we took anyway. One thing the computer does not consider, of course, is position. It doesn't take strategy into account. It's all about the value of what you put on the board and the value of what you keep on the rack. So my opponent took a while to search for something on this rack and ultimately admitted that there was nothing and found pretty much the best available play. Okay, this I did not know, and we missed it completely. I didn't know either of these, actually, which is unfortunate. So I'm just going to punch that in the definition bot. Llanero, an inhabitant of the Llanos of South America. So the symbol you see next to that indicates that that word is exclusive to the Collins lexicon, so that's one of the reasons I would not have known it through study. I don't know about Illyrian either. Illyrian. In heraldry, an eagle displayed without feet or beak. Okay. So that's going to be something good to know. Didn't know that it was also good with two L's like that, so. Yeah, basically a bunch of stuff we didn't know how to play being what we missed. But we're just going to make a bit of a dumb play out of that. One that we don't even see on the table of considerations because honestly it's not that great. I should have seen something like that though if I had bothered to properly search for parallels. So yeah, not happy with that play at all. My opponent's drawn into a fairly difficult situation and actually did find the highest valued play coming out of that. It does keep two vowels, but the thing is, with so many consonants on his rack, I think the right idea was to just dig into the bag once more. I'm in a bad situation here, and I do not consider Walla, which is something I should have known. But this is not horrible. Keeping a double L is a bit awkward, but the L is not the worst tile to duplicate. But in general, you don't want to duplicate tiles other than maybe the F. Yep. Either location. These are not the locations that my opponent picks. He picks this one, and I think that is correct. When you consider position. Mostly just vulnerable to some kind of big consonant bomb with an O on that side. And let's see if I missed anything big here. Wouldn't call it big, but it is probably a much more reasonable play than some of these tiny little things I was considering. Yeah, I should have looked a little harder for 5-letter words heading over there. And yep, very natural of my opponent to take advantage of the consonant location that I opened up. Not the easiest thing, in fact, to fit in two consonants like that beside O and I, but a word like amid would do it. Okay, let's see what I missed here. Still no sevens. Don't think I knew Lutea. So let's just take a look at that quickly. Yeah, a lot of these low point 5-letter words are things that are a little bit out of my range of study, at least as things that I've looked at with any rigor. Netcat, I'm actually just looking over the game we just played. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for the second round right now because the pairings are not done yet. We have a club format tonight where we have 3 rounds between the same pool of opponents, and so I'm just waiting for them to finish and evaluating our game in the meantime. And, yeah, so this is where we got killed by Tawdrier. That was, if you see it, the natural place to go. Mainly, it just kind of opens up this as a risk, but I was completely out of position in terms of being able to take advantage of that, so that was not happening. I missed... okay, no, these are just 6-letter words. Didn't really consider that. I'm actually fine with what I played. It scores a little bit less, but it does so in a way that kind of maximizes the positions that are still available coming out of that. And keeping ITE while a bit heavy on vowels is not horrible. But at least I didn't miss any big plays there. And yes, Meng, it is fake words time. And my opponent does not see that. That would have been a fantastic play if he had. And let me see what that actually is. An Indian police station. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, something like hand here would have been vulnerable to the letter Y, perhaps. Going down there. But he is going to play it. And yeah, I guess that's reasonable. I mean, this isn't going to score too much. The main risk is, in fact, in this spot here. And as we know, my opponent does eventually dump the S in that spot. Yeah, I didn't consider that spot. I just took the QI up here. I think positionally I'm okay with that. I was not going to do any of this kind of stuff that keeps J and Q. I think that scores decently, but at the same time I'm 100 points behind at this point. Plays like that leave me with junk are probably not going to pay off in the long run. But NY is a hard thing to see. This one is also a word that's only in this dictionary, and so I still have some trouble visualizing it sometimes. Very consonant heavy on my opponent's side, and this is the natural place to go, and so he just takes it. Interesting that hand would extend to hand X, but of course he would never just give me the X on a position like that. Okay, let's see what's over here. How did I miss that? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a big miss, actually. That's much harder to see. That would have been spectacular. Jitney keeps V, which is not great at all, but, you know, changing in 6 tiles for a huge play at this point is really not bad. So yeah, just missed both of these plays. And I do know these words, it's just not really looking properly, I think. And also being a bit concerned about spending all my vowels at that point. But I really did need a decent mid-sized play like that to get back in. And so 32 points off mine, it was okay, but you can see that the awkwardness of the V here does kill a lot of possibility. Lots of stuff you can do with the blank here. My opponent ultimately went with Angoras. But you can see lots and lots of choices that all score roughly the same. Yeah, he would not have wanted to give me a huge open position like that, I don't think, and so kind of makes sense even if he had seen it. And that's the thing to do would be to close up the very volatile spot down the right side lane. Okay, so let's see. I did in fact find the best play for one of the only turns in this game where that was the case. I think this was kind of badly played on my part, but this turn I was very happy with, and I think rightly so, looking at the evaluation. Yeah, I was trying to find some ways to not just keep letters like J and B because it would be hard to use. And so the fact that I found a 40-point play using both of them was something I was very happy with, especially given what I drew into next. This is pretty much guaranteed play. My opponent found ambient, but look at what he could have done as well as bimensal. Although once again, I don't think he would have done that even if he had seen it, simply because it gives a lane back. Okay, pinches. Easy to see. Very clearly the best play. And yeah, at this point, I mean, this is very clearly a lost game on my part. Stuff like that would have been very interesting to see from my opponent, but at this point, I don't think he's worried about the win so much. And of course, playing something like the T in that position just locks up this corner because there are no 3-letter words that will go in front of TI. And so, yeah, because when you're ahead by about 140 points, the thing that you're interested in doing is just guaranteeing to win. And that's exactly what he's doing tactically. And yes, Mang, as you can see, a hand, or to hand something, is to present with the extremity of the arm below the wrist. So, I've got to hand it to you. And you'll use these words at a dinner party. Netcat, that would make you a deipnosophist, I think. A deipnosophist is something... I actually don't know if that's in the dictionary. It is. A deipnosophist is a person skilled in dinner conversation. So, that's one to know. That's exactly the word you want to pull out at dinner, actually. So yeah, I didn't really see the big plays with the F. At this point, though, I knew that this was pretty much a lost game, so... And my opponent has lots of stuff he can do. What did he end up going with? He did end up finding golfs, which is the best play in this position. And at that point, he knows exactly what I have, so... Yeah, I did not find that. I did find itched, though, and that's only about 4 points down, which is okay. And so yeah, 324 to 457 is going to be the final score there. And... yeah, mostly just fell way behind early in the game from a couple of bad decisions when handling some of the low point tiles. You know, trying to play off a few at a time with stuff like this, and I really wasn't too happy with that. So it's very clear what we were losing to, and of course my opponent just had some great plays all over, finding this, and really having a good positional control. Yeah, this of course just kind of killed me early on. And so yeah, we just couldn't keep up. I mean, this was our play here at the end, but that was too little, too late. And yeah, Natcat, there's a great deal of theory in the game that I think is actually relatively unexplored, because the high-level player base has been going on for a few decades, but it always has been fairly small, and so I think even the highest level players kind of recognize that a lot of high-level understanding of strategy is actually still very much in development, I guess. I mean, most human players still play very poorly compared to AI, actually, because there's just a lot of calculation that can be difficult to do intuitively. So, I mean, you do have to learn a lot of stuff just to be able to see what kind of plays are possible, but once you do learn that kind of basic set of words to work with, then a lot of this game is mostly positional and strategic thinking, like thinking about where your opponent can go and how to set up opportunities for yourself, and especially how to make sure that each play you make puts you in a usable position going into the next turn. That's one of the first things that you really work on tactically. So that's going to be it for this game. We're just waiting for the pairings for round 2 right now. We're kind of a little ahead of schedule, but we can go back to the lobby and observe some of the other boards that are going on, just to see what's going on with this group. And yeah, we still have 2 other games that are going on currently. I'm just going to see if either of them are in an interesting or close position. Yeah, these 2 players are pretty much right at endgame right now. And now when I'm observing a game that I'm not playing, they actually patched in a feature I thought that would allow you to see definitions, but I may be wrong. But anyway, yeah, very differently shaped board, as you can see. One that's much more closed off with these, stepladder structures. Yeah, a couple of big plays here, though. You see this kind of combination, richest followed by talented, and so they both got some decent plays in. I'm just going to tap out of here quickly and look at the other board, just to see if they're in an interesting or close situation. Oh, this is a very close situation. Look at that. It's a 3-point difference right now. Oh, and I see what's going on. Yeah. So one player just tried to play TES with the blank to score on this spot here. But essaying doesn't take an S on the end, and so that was challenged off. I came in just in time to see that, and so now the player who... yeah, because that would have brought the game within 3 points, and instead of that, that's going to be a game that's decided. So yeah. Some successful challenges in this game, by the looks of it. And so yeah, we're just going to wait for this last game to finish. Thank you for the follow. And once these players are finished, we'll have the pairings for the next round. And yep, they are done as well. Comparatively low-scoring game, but that's what happens when you have a lot of these closed positions where, you know, when you have stepladder structures like this, you'll notice... let's see if I can actually do this. Stepladder structures like this, you'll notice that it's very hard for anybody to actually attach additional words going down, for instance, or going to the side. And so what happens is that players just increasingly get locked up into these corner positions where they can't score very much. So you really only have these, you know, big scoring plays over here. You have also one invalid word, 2 invalid words, in fact. No, 1 invalid word, which is zound here. Which sounds like it should be good, like zounds, right? But it sounds like it should be good, but it is actually not valid. So that's going to be done. We'll go back to the lobby and just wait for the next pairings. And we'll see if there were any particularly interesting games to look at in terms of score. Yeah, we had today just these games that are in the top rows here. I think we have a group of 16 tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a group of 14 tonight. And so yeah, nothing that looks particularly close. We had one of the worst games in the group so far for round 1, although this was a bigger blowout here by about 200 points. And yeah, we'll just wait for the next round, I guess. We can take a look at some of these boards in the meantime, see what they're up to. Like this one over here. Look at that, some pretty interesting plays. Hornitos. Interesting. And the computer is telling me that everything on this board is actually a valid word, but these are pretty advanced players, so... What on earth is a hornito? Hornito is a mound of volcanic matter, okay. And look at this lovely play over here, Bluesier, which looks like it actually might have gone I don't think it was a 7-letter play through the S. It was, yeah, blues was already on the board, and IER got extended here for 30 points. So that was kind of interesting. And yeah, other than that, a lot of big plays all over. You get Hunters, Spacier, Inundate. Lots of stuff to look at. Okay, pairings are coming up for round 2, so I'm just going to get ready and we'll go into our second live game in just a moment. We usually don't actually have enough time to step through all of round 1, but we lost so decisively in the first game today that that just got settled quickly. So yeah, just bear with me and we'll just kind of await that. So yeah, hope you folks are all doing well in the meantime. I don't know if any of you looked at the new Ninja level that had come up yesterday. But yeah, the Ninja level, I think I got down to sub 40 seconds or so, and I was happy with that. I'm usually happy with just getting down to top 2%. I did not do that on stream. I actually haven't recorded my Ninja runs. I kind of assure you that I'm much less mild-mannered about Ninja levels than I often am about playing viewer content of all sorts. Okay, we know our opponent for the next game. I'm just going to check with him what lexicon we're using. And as soon as we've confirmed which dictionary we're using, we'll be in. So let me just get that going. Use the international rule sets. And 20 minutes is probably going to be good. Let's go. Natcat, the next one will be the last, and it's in April, because it's number 20, and they only ever had 20 slots for that. Did I actually send him the match? Hang on. Yes, I did. Okay. So we'll just wait for my opponent to accept, and we will be in. Yeah, I generally enjoyed the Ninja levels in terms of the variety of techniques that they tested. I'm not somebody who's a natural speedrun player. I'm not really somebody who has the right kind of mentality or precision for it. But often I found that, you know, even if I just looked at one of those for half an hour or so and mostly just solved the most efficient routes that I could actually execute, that was usually enough to get me into the top 1 or 2%, and it was very satisfying just to do that. Okay. I have an opening rack with a blank, and it might be something good, actually. But let me think about that for just a moment. Just going to send greetings to my opponent, and let me just put up the notepad screen in case I end up using it. So I'm looking at a couple of things that I can do. I can look at the LY ending. I can look at the ILY ending. Handily, for instance. Yeah. So that's how you do this, is that you usually just try to look for prefixes, suffixes, and then you check to make sure, okay, is the positioning something I'm happy with? And I'm okay with that. Not very risky. It's not going to get extended to the triple on either side, so we'll just do that. Nice to actually get a decent play. And yeah, Netcat, in general, I find that with a lot of Mario Maker, that very often we're just kind of compensating for features that are not really baked into the software with our own hacky community solutions. And so in this case, it would be that, you know, I just kind of get my fill of the Ninja and play the level, and then by the end of the week, I see what players like Hanga might be doing in terms of the routing. Look at that. That's a great play from my opponent. He played 7 letters as well, with fairly low point tiles, but he practically matched my score, almost, just by having 5 parallels in the middle. So he made 5 parallel words by fitting instead on top of handily. Looks very fancy. Here, I think I want to play something like hung, if I can fit it anywhere good. I'm sitting on too many consonants. Something like... let's see. I mean, there's also the ing ending, shunting. Oh, geez. This is going to be a nice open board. Look at that. Well, this is a shootout so far. Second turn already, and we've got 3 consecutive bingos on the board. From some unlikely racks. Well, no, I mean, my opponent's rack was pretty much guaranteed something. My first rack had some pretty good synergies with a blank that probably has a lot more words than just handily, to be honest. There's probably quite a lot more in there. This rack that I just had looked like a whole bunch of nothing, and then I was just very conveniently given the eye. So, we'll see if that becomes anything useful. Currently, I'm looking at the X. It is possible to, you know, maybe do a parallel with the X in this position with something like X, 37 points, but that does keep a bit of a clunky situation coming out. Although, interesting thing about Axe is that if I draw another A... No, actually, with the I, you know, I can follow that up with an I play that makes taxi. So it's not as bad as it looks, because I potentially have some additional plays coming out of that with tiles that I already have on my rack. So, for example, I play this for 37, then I can start with, like, Shad or Shag, and have an I play going this way. You know, with, like, let's see if I can... You know, if I follow up with Dirk or something after Axe. And, of course, the decisions will be guided by what I draw coming out of that, but I'm just saying that if my opponent doesn't take advantage of it, I still have some options. And... other than that, if I can't find a good way to spend the X, the main thing I'll be looking for is some way to just kind of get rid of some consonants. You know, G really gets in the way of a lot of things. I mean, G goes with R pretty well, but otherwise G can just jam up the works and can be pretty awkward to work with. So we'll just see what my opponent does, and kind of take it from there. Yeah, pretty interesting board so far. He's taking quite a while on this turn, which is either very good or very bad, I think. This is kind of signaling to me that he's probably sitting pretty heavily on vowels, or was in that turn. But it's hard to tell sometimes with 3 tiles like that what kind of awkwardness he was dealing with. I think this is going to be correct. I like it. And yeah, we can even have a W play going out of there now if he doesn't take it, so something like Wired would be like 46. So Tax would take A as well as I in this location here. So there's some likelihood that my opponent will just take that spot ahead of me, but that's the risk I take. I am ahead by about 100 right now, so... although it's less than that because it is my opponent's turn, so when you take tempo into account, I'm actually ahead by, you know, roughly 70 or so. Typically, for players at this level, you kind of assume that for most turns it'll average out at about 30 points a turn. But it comes and goes. Like, often, if they're making a very low-scoring play, that's usually because they're setting up for a high-scoring play later on. And by setting up, sometimes that could just mean getting rid of, you know, some clunky stuff. Mitrals. I don't think I know that. And it's 5-point challenge, and that is an 89-point play. I have to check that, I think. So if I challenge and it is a valid word, then my opponent gets an extra 5 points. If I challenge and it's an invalid word, then it comes off and it's my turn. It is not good. And more importantly, I know what my opponent is holding now. I know that he's holding, you know, something like, yeah, that. But yeah, worth a try. He, you know, just kind of ventured that in a situation where he was 100 points behind, and it doesn't look terrible. I do have to consider now if my opponent might have somewhere else to go. But on the assumption that he hasn't found anything, I just need to not open anything up that's dangerous. So, for example, I'm looking at my opponent's rack and thinking immediately that, you know, he's maybe looking at ILY endings or something like that, but I mean, he's got 2 eyes and not a lot of vowels to play through. Like, vowels to play through, you just have to U here, O here. I feel pretty safe. So we'll probably do some kind of W play, like wired. No reason to play wide or over wired. Wired scores more. And we know that he doesn't have the 7-letter word he was looking for, so we're not worried about that lane. Keeping G and K is not great, but I think this is the best we can do. Okay, so this is kind of making up for the last game so far, in that we are heading way ahead. I'm going to continue to track what's on my opponent's rack as he plays off some tiles, because now we have some partial information to hold with, to kind of observe my opponent with, and so I can guess in advance what kind of spots he might be looking at and what kind of dangers are in sight. I won't have perfect information, but some information is already very useful to work with. And yeah, I don't know that he would have had any 8-letter plays with this on the board anyway. Even looking through higher potential tiles like an L. Anyway, so he's going to shed his rack down to RS, which is still very dangerous. We have to take into account the fact that we now have an S spot here that is wide open, and he will almost certainly be trying to make some kind of use of it. So we just have to take that into consideration. Interestingly enough, EL does have a K that it can take, so, you know, we could potentially make something like Keen, and that's 35 points. Main issue is that AAG is not great, and it also does open up the second S spot, but it's not more dangerous than the existing S spot. It's just that we'd have to eventually worry about closing both of those down. But yeah, definitely looking at Keen as a potential play. But we'll see if there's anything that is a little bit better in terms of the tiles we are keeping. So, for example, that's 23, but we can take that next turn, perhaps. And, you know, if we really do need to get out of trouble with the A and G. I think at this point I just take the points. Like, the S spot is technically open already anyway with EL, so we're not making our situation worse. Okay, we're in a pretty interesting situation now with the Z. We're very heavy on vowels, but there are a lot of words with Z that can take care of some of these vowels. Vet, of course, will take O on the end for veto. And of course we can do something like azo. That might be best, in fact. Unless I see anything better. Like it scores with the Z. It's going to close down the lane at the end of vet. It opens up a new lane in this spot, but that's less dangerous than the existing lane that we're closing, so I think we are going to take it. Still kind of heavy on the G's and the vowels on my end, but the thing is we, at this point, are just trying to... Ooh, very nice, lobsters. So we no longer know what the opponent is holding, but he's going to steadily try to move towards catching up. Still a long ways to go, but the thing is, you cannot be complacent in this game when it comes to writing people off. So currently we need to deal with this spot over here that's looking pretty dangerous. You know, something like where would not be too bad. You'd still have some possibilities coming off of here, but... And I don't really like keeping the double G. It's kind of too bad that, you know, you don't have a word like eggware. I mean, if we had L instead of G, we could have had, like, legwear. But unfortunately, Easter Bunny costumes are not called that. Always kind of looking at possibilities for comboing down to the W here as well. But I think at this point I want to kill the open lanes, so we'll do that. And yeah, the double G really is in the way. And if I can eventually get rid of that, that would be great. So we'll just stay on what we have. Okay, I was kind of looking at something like flip in that location, but that's been taken, so no need to fixate on that for too long. Interestingly enough, AS does take the P on the end, so we might actually want to keep the P until we have some way to make use of that. Unless, of course, we just have some other play using the P. That will kind of go there. Don't want to do anything too small right now, but now I believe that something like GIF is actually good. That's certainly in the smaller North American dictionary as well, in fact, so it doesn't score very many points, but it does manage to rack, and more importantly, it closes off this spot as a potential comeback. And so there would only really be one major comeback spot we would be worried about after that, and that's this lane down here. Some possibilities through the N as well, but... And of course through here. So it's not really a great block, but this is probably one of the more dangerous spots. Because you can have a lot of endings on the A with something like the remaining T in the bag. Also notice that the Q is still unseen. And that's going to be something we need to take into account. Still just looking around to see if there are any plays we have that would actually score decently. Like something like Fizz. 31. That would close up as well. I actually don't quite remember. I think it's good. But that's something we could think about, but I still have the double G to deal with, so I don't know if that's really great. And because we still have a pretty clunky position after that. At the same time, kind of hard to say no to 31 points. Like, it's 15 points better than display. Maybe it is worth it. It's just that, you know, we might be digging ourselves into a bit of a hole with the double G here, that's all. And we are just going to draw the other F out of that, so nearly identical rack to what we had before. And yeah, trying to open up some other spots here. You can see that there's still one D left in the bag, and that something like a D ending here with the meld is potentially going to be an issue. LEV takes a whole bunch of stuff. I think it takes A and O and such at the end, so I don't want to dangle anything for the S or blank, so unfortunately I can't just play something like Gag. I probably don't want to open this spot at all, in fact. Because if my opponent is going to make a comeback play, I don't want him to do it on the triple, right? I might honestly just shut this down. It's going to be an imperfect shutdown, in that you still have, you know, things like ST and SN and such that are going to go under here. But might be better than nothing. And yeah, just still seeing what else I can do, like, you know, if maybe... That's not too bad, 25 points does kind of shut down in the vicinity of the end. Sure, let's take the points. Right now we're very comfortably ahead, with 18 tiles in a bag, and a pretty vowel-heavy bag, in fact. My opponent needs 2 big plays, like bingo-sized plays, to catch up to me at this point. And you can do that with a really big combo play with a Q, for instance, but it's definitely going to be difficult for him. We have to keep in mind that we don't want to get stuck with the Q, because that's one of the things that's, even at this margin currently, we could potentially lose to. So, for example, the opponent has one really big play that's, you know, 80 to 100 points or so, if he manages it, you know, like a play down to C, for instance. If we get stuck in an endgame situation where we have a Q and we can't dump it, we can, in fact, lose from a 160-point lead. Like, it has been something I've seen in both directions. And so, at this point in the game, you know, our thinking should mainly be about mitigating situations like that and making sure we don't get into that kind of trouble. And in the meantime, just scoring enough that we have enough of a safety buffer, that we're not too vulnerable to stuff like that. Because of the situation with the Q, small plays are probably not too bad at this point. Yeah, he's going to diffuse the E idea that I had by using the H in that position instead. And I does take the F below, so we'll hang on to the F because it could get me into some interesting plays there, except of course now he's opened up another lane going this way. That is also the last I in the bag, which is very important because other than the blank, it means that QI is no longer going to be available, and QI is usually the easiest way to get rid of the Q. We can play off both E's, but I don't think I want to. I do think I want to just play cautiously. Not draw too much at a time. Because there is some possibility of disaster in the bag that we currently see. Yeah. I definitely worry about dumping off the A as well, because, you know, A has some words that will go with Q, E really doesn't. And that might be something that we just have to deal with. Because, yeah, somebody's just going to be stuck handling the Q, I think, even with the 2 U's left. At this point, you know, whoever's drawing a U should be hanging on to it for getting out of Q trouble. We could keep the D for this idea here, with D going down, in case we want to block off, but I don't really see anything particularly good I can do with that. I don't know if Gamped is good. I know Gamp is, but I don't know if it's a noun or a verb, actually. And I probably don't want to mess around with laying off all those tiles. Let's just do damp. Okay, we have one of the 2 remaining U's, and we'll hang on to that to hedge against the Q, and then even with that available to deal with the Q, the positioning on this board is tight enough that... Oh, there's the Q, never mind. The positioning on this board is tight enough, I was going to say, that we would not have wanted to get stuck with that. Now, here's the big risk at this point. 3 tiles in a bag. It's pretty heavy with vowels, but it's not inconceivable that there is a 7-letter play from my opponent there that will use either the S or the blank or both in order to go here. And that's going to be a massive play if so. And so I think we must go here with either OF or OY. I'm going to go OF because keeping the Y allows me to play Y plays under the M. And also because the Y still is vulnerable to like SY endings. But there's never going to be an SF ending, right? So now we're no longer worried about this lane. So at this point, about 160 ahead. Yeah. Okay, very nice. So reposes from my opponent. And yeah, this would have been a huge risk down here if we were not careful. It would not have been enough to win, but look at that. He's closed the lead down to about 90 points, and that's pretty respectable. So my opponent only has 1 tile left. It's not going to score very much, but it does mean that we should play off the highest value play that we see in this move here. It might be something involving the Y in this position, but I don't really know. I think maybe the Y here is going to be much better. Yeah, something like your 32 points. It's not too bad. And then you just kind of take into account that with 4 points remaining on my rack, that means my opponent is going to get a +8 at the end of his move, whatever it is. And so it says 32 points on my move, but it's actually worth 24 because you just kind of take the -8 into account. I don't think I'm going to beat that. I mean, you can have Y plays down here, but they're not going to spend as many tiles. So that's going to be 30 points, doesn't score as much. Might be something up here, you know, like 26, no. Or, you know, no, RO is not a word. I don't think we're doing better than this. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, I was way ahead for a lot of this game, but the thing is, my opponent did pretty well, if you look at it, in terms of getting down to plays when he needed. It's just that I pulled way ahead on some of the smaller in-between plays, and we're just going to pass on that to confirm that the game is finished. 501, 392. And yeah, just gonna send him a couple of pleasantries at the end of the game. And let's see, I don't know how much time we have before the remaining round. But let's just examine the board and see if we missed anything particularly spectacular. Okay, so let's take a look at the analysis board. I found handily. I'm sure there's some other stuff like sandily, or not sandily, but dandily, randily. Ladykin. That's rather nice. I was looking at the ing ending as well, and I don't know if there was anything there. And yeah, not much else to look at. I think the positioning was probably fine there. Oh, interestingly, this score is even better. I don't know this word. I think it might just be a Collins word. A measure of land, Desiatin. But anyway, he played instead, which is a spectacular placement. Let's see what other placements were available. Nah, there's nothing that looks quite as fancy as this. It's a really nice position. I over the double isn't actually as threatening as it looks because F is the only really high point threat that will go there. Let's see. Shunting. Yeah, hunting's with an S in the end is good. I don't know if shunting would take S on either end, but hunting's, you know, I wouldn't have known if shunting's would become a threat on top of that. And it is. It is. Now, I see why my opponent was staring at this for a while now. I was kind of reading this as maybe being potentially heavy on vowels, but was actually just because he was generally close to something, I think, and just... Oh, look at this. He actually did miss something. But that's the kind of play that nobody's really going to see. Unless you're really kind of good at studying down to these lower probability words that have the double O. I mean, the tiles are fairly high probability. It's just that the double O and the sort of weirdness of the arrangement of letters there does mean that a lot of people won't have gotten that far in looking up Scrabble special words. And so that is octroi, a duty levied on certain goods entering a town, especially in some European countries. And good in both dictionaries, so definitely one we should keep in mind. So yeah, I mean, he played a coup over here on the left side for a couple of points, rather Kuhn, and given that he's building towards a bingo, I can kind of understand, you know, playing a lower point play to keep the positions open, as opposed to something like this that would shut down, although this would also keep more dangerous lane open down here. Now, what did we look at here? There was axe in that position, yeah, but I liked the axe in that position because of the sort of setup sequence that we were looking at. And if my opponent had just even slightly different letters, we could have been punished for that very quickly. But you can see 37 points in either direction. XU takes nothing in front, so this would have shut things down, but I like setting up for the combo play, so. Now, did my opponent miss something? Yes, he missed Troilism. So what is Troilism? Troilism, Troilism is very raunchy. Troilism, I guess. Troilism. Yeah, didn't know that. It is a threesome. It's a very fancy word for a threesome. I should keep that in mind, actually. Really the kind of word that would be very saucy under the right circumstances. But failing that, there were actually some other things he could have done in that position to take advantage of the spot I'd opened up, but that was the risk I took, and very luckily he tried something that would not go down, and I was able to kick that off. So, wired was my play here. Interestingly, the computer actually does favor a wig, because it's reading GK as being so much worse than keeping DEKR. And I can kind of understand that, especially because wired here does still open up for counterplays going down here. But I knew what my opponent was holding, and I knew he wouldn't take it, so. Here we know his best play is still Troilism, but we didn't know it. Okay, at this point, what are we looking at? Yeah, I was playing Keen down here. That's defensible, I guess. I mean, you know, it doesn't do anything to close up or improve my board control, but it was actually the highest scoring play available by the looks of it. So I was comfortable with that. Even if AAG is not great, but I basically had a way to deal with AAG because I was still looking at the AGA spot over here. Or other ideas like that that would get me out of trouble. Yeah, this is definitely a Collinsford. VROT. Did not know it. Bolt would have been good, I mean, other than just blocking everything, and obviously from my opponent's perspective, he's so far behind that he would be reluctant to play some of these low point plays to get back in position. And so Vet is not too bad, because what does that keep? Use LRST, yeah, I mean, it gets him into vowel trouble. He's banking on drawing into a decently vowel-heavy bag, which is half and half vowels and consonants at this point. And he's, of course, keeping the S to go down here, so even if he was just drawing 2 vowels, he could have potentially been in a good position. It's just that I could very easily take that out. And no, I think this was clearly the play. And yeah, look at that. He's got Bolster, Lobster, and he does, in fact, see Lobsters up there. Bolters would have been fine down here. Lobsters kind of threatened to open the triple. Really the right ideas for my opponent, it's just that I pulled way ahead with those middle plays and with the turn advantage from winning the challenge. And Waggery. That's kind of a nice one. Waggery being mischievous behavior. Of course, it would take an S in front, I think, for Swaggery. No, it doesn't, actually. Swaggery would not have been in there. So never mind, don't listen to me about such things. Anyway, lots of 30-point plays that I was not really considering, because I was quite happy to just dump a Ware on top and grab my 34 points that way. Oh, interesting that my opponent is already holding Q at this point, but decides to just kind of score, I think, with Bleeny up here. Keeping QEL, you can see actually how badly that is considered by the computer that, you know, it scores 24 points in face value, but it's evaluated as 15 points because the Q, keeping QEL like that, is such a massive penalty. And so plays that dump the Q were probably much better at this point. Maybe he was kind of paranoid about me going there, or maybe he just wanted to keep lanes open down here, but you know, it's very true that I was considering playing something like Flip in the top corner if that were still available. And yeah, a lot of words that I didn't really consider here. Buggy and Puggy. Ooh, get up. Oh wow, look at that. Look at that P hook over here for Pshaw. That's something I had not considered at all. Okay, what else have we got here? We still have my opponent sitting on Q for many, many turns now that I look at it. He had been holding that for quite some time, and he was not playing it. Which I find very strange, because there's no reason to keep it past opportunities like that. I mean, that was clearly the best play here. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing at this point. I mean, you have S blank still in the bag. I think one thing that he's definitely not prioritizing enough is dumping the Q. I think that's definitely a mistake on my opponent's part here. A lot of the same plays I didn't spot still available. But at this point I'm just trying to lock things up. And yeah, he's just passing on it every single turn. Don't know if he just didn't spot it or what. Anyway, a couple of things we can do. I was not going to open up down there. I did not know LEVE actually, because I am pretty sure that is also only in this dictionary. And so I would not have necessarily studied for it. But in general, given that we still had a blank S and such, I was not going to put the E in that position. I might have considered putting the P in that position, but I think I was very happy to just play off the J elsewhere. And just take what points I can. Yeah, at this point my opponent is in serious trouble, now that I've blocked off the Q spot. And nothing here is going to be great. He plays that for 8 points and still has a Q problem. Gamp is good. I was going to check something about Gamp, wasn't I? I was going to check... it's an umbrella, so there's no Gamped or anything like that. Yeah, because I was thinking about the ED ending going in here. But at this point, I just wanted to remain in a closed position. And yeah, my opponent will finally take that. Interestingly, there is this spelling of korma in this dictionary, which makes me hunger for buttered chicken, mostly. But this is a good play. It threatens the bottom spot. It sort of forces me to play down there. I guess the Coca play did open up a potential lane. But this was always going to be the big remaining lane to take care of. And opening up a second one like that is a pretty good idea if you know at that point that you were likely to have the S. And yeah, there we go. Lots of stuff that my opponent can play. Oh, look at this fantastic parallel there. Very difficult to see, so not surprised that that did not happen. But yeah, all kinds of possibilities here, and my opponent will just go with reposes. And yeah, it's sort of interesting that he'll just put the S in this position and a blank in this position, but you know, these are just minor optimizations at a point in the game when he knows it's pretty much lost. So yeah, I don't think I knew Goey. I think Goey might also be a Collins word. If you're anxious to go, huh? If you're very go-y, huh? Interesting. Given that I didn't know that, I did find what was effectively the best available play. So, yep. And, you know, these plays at the end aren't going to matter too much. We're going to have a big finish. And that's a win, 501 to 392. Okay, so we still don't have pairings up for the next round, probably because games are still going on. I'm going to head back to the lobby and see if we still have some games that we can observe. So tonight, one big win, one big loss. And, okay, no live games, but also no pairings yet, so I think that's probably just in progress. Last game finished about 6 minutes ago. And looking at the scores here, I don't know if there's that much to look at. We had a very close game over here with... Oh, look at this. We had a 3-point finish over here. Finished on 386, 389. So they had some kind of really tight endgame. I kind of wonder if anything was maybe decided by the 5-point challenge, but seems not. Yeah. Looks like a really interesting situation that they had there at the end, where they were just kind of hunting for small plays. And I wonder if there would have been a winning play here. Yeah, so I guess he did potentially miss some winning plays. Although, at this point, yeah, because that would have exhausted the pool. Whose turn is it? At that point, that is the best play, and he did find it. So there was no winning situation for our friend MMM Mice. Pairings are about to come up, so let's go back. And yeah, they're just figuring out pairings based on dictionary preference right now, so... We play both, of course. I'm flexible. Much worse in the international dictionary, but, you know, we make do here and there. Yeah, let's just scan around and see what else we could look at in that pile of games. So yeah, really interesting to see that 3-point margin, because it seemed like the winning player there, Jomi, actually missed a guaranteed win the turn before. This game over here was a fairly tight margin, a 14-point loss for Noah, who was the player who demolished us in the first round. Anyway, pairings are coming up. Let's get ready for round 3. And we'll be in there in a moment, once we know who we've got. And moreover, which dictionary we have. Okay, we'll be playing the North American lexicon for this game against a very good frequent opponent of ours. Just going to set the rule set accordingly. So the North American lexicon is played in what we call a double challenge, which are kind of the traditional box rules of Scrabble, where if you challenge a word and you are wrong about it, so if you challenge a word that is valid, you lose your turn completely. So it's much riskier to do so, and so the game is much more open to bluffing. Whereas in the rule sets that we've shown off so far tonight, the penalty for wrongfully challenging is merely a 5-point difference. It kind of feels balanced in the end simply because the North American dictionary is much smaller. But we're just waiting for the opponent to accept the match request, and we are in. Once again, we'll be going first. And yeah, very heavy on consonants right now, and a double S is a bit of a weird situation because, you know, you don't want to spend the S too wastefully, but you also don't really want to you also don't want to keep duplicates of letters like that because they will just kind of damage your flexibility. Currently, I'm just thinking of like a small play with the S that doesn't give much away, something like sty. Because that way we keep a vowel. Unless, of course, we have something that would be much better. That would, you know, place the high point tile like the Y in this position, for instance, or the C in this position. But I think... Oh, there's also this. MYC. It does keep the double S, and maybe that's not as good, considering that is 20 points. Although, yeah, 8 additional points. I guess the idea is, do we play this for 20 and keep ASST? Or do we do something like this, which is in a really blocky position, and keep CASM? Now, the thing about MYC is that it should take an S on the end, and we have an S to take advantage of that, so I think I'm okay with it. It's going to really stuff my opponent in terms of his flexibility. And, okay, so we are still in a very consonant-heavy situation, but we now have a blank to work with. And so we might just play off a whole bunch of things at once. We might have, like, gaze or stagey or something like that that just burns one of the S's, gets it out of our way, keeps ES. We definitely want to keep... Sorry, it keeps a blank S. We definitely want to keep a blank S. And yeah, MYC here, it's one of the very useful words to know, as one of the few that are all consonants in this dictionary. Now, what do we think of the idea of stayings? I wonder if I should try it, because it's a double challenge, of course. Don't look it up yet in chat, by the way, because I do need to decide this for myself before I take that risk. But let's see if there's some kind of alternative to that, because I kind of like it, to be honest. But it comes with a big risk, which is that we do reveal our whole rack to my opponent if I'm wrong. It's not a big deal to lose a turn this early in the game, because we still have a pretty flexible situation here. The alternative would be playing something like stagey on top of the M for 25. But I think it's hard to say no to this. I have to try it. If it gets kicked off, it gets kicked off, whatever. INGS is one of those things where, like, the top players know the list cold. Like, they know every single INGS word that is valid. But often you have to make some really borderline judgment calls about whether something that ends with ing will also end with ings, because a lot of stuff doesn't, but there are many surprising things that do, like words that have to do with sports and construction and so on, very often do. But I kind of like it, because if you have a staying, like if you have a staying as a noun, it seems plausible to me in some kind of context that I can't quite place. And we're still in a reasonable position even if that gets kicked off. It's going to be essentially like we're going second. And, you know, the board isn't going to be that closed off just yet. So my opponent's taking some time with this turn, and that's something that he's definitely going to be considering, is whether or not to attempt to challenge this, and unless he just knows that it's good, which he might, because this is a very strong opponent that we are playing against. So we will find out about this soon enough. I am still in a very consonant-heavy situation, as you can see. Just burning through the consonants here, which... Yep, he's going to take it. And we do have to deal with this situation now with the V. I mean, probably it's just going to end up being something like VATS. Or even VAST would be better. Positionally. Except it would take a VAST up top. The other thing is that we could look at plays going down here. On this side. I don't know if there's anything good we can do. A would have to go over G. And I don't think we actually have anything decent that would take advantage of this spot here. So let's see what we can do. I think this might be right. I mean, keeping both G and D is still not great. We have to deal with Avast up top and also the T lane that's been opened up here. VATS might actually be fine because it doesn't open up any lanes and this is not too risky a spot. So let's go with that, unless there's anything better that I can do that will give me a better rack to work with. Like maybe... No, I want to undouble the T's, so let's just do it. Okay, we're given an I somewhere on the board. I think we can have Gristled. We would definitely need something to play through on this rack, though, so... Like, we can't just play it as is. I think Gristled must be good. If we have something else like an A to play through, maybe that might give us something as well. And we do have an A we should be looking at over here. But it's in a position that I think will probably still leave us a bit too heavy on consonants. So we'll just have to wait and see what my opponent is up to. We're still in a pretty good situation when it comes to keeping the S, and particularly if we manage to keep ERST. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty open position. There is an I there, but it's not in a position that we can use for something like Gristled. And we also don't have enough vowels to really take advantage of the parallel here, or even anything going here. So this whole spot up top is going to be pretty dangerous, but I actually like the idea of doing something like Glad. because we're keeping the E for Glade going down to here. And ERST is a very powerful combination to leave ourselves with. And it leaves enough space for plays to go through the eye, so I like this. It's a bit risky, but we'll take it. So, this is got to be something, or it's got to be close to something. We should actually take the time to look. Yeah, always looking at, you know, endings like ERS and EST and so on. The V is the part of the equation here that is a bit awkward. But we'll just have to play around with this and see if there's any other tile on the board currently that might give us something to play through. Yeah, still looking at potential plays through the I, for instance, or maybe even with the L. And if there is an O on the board, we would look at something like the over prefix. I don't know if you can overseat something. Like if you overseat a venue by selling too many tickets. And yeah, Natcat, thanks for catching me at what for us is this ungodly hour. And I hope to see you around some of the Maker streams. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope this was reasonably entertaining, even if it isn't the usual content we do here. And yeah, there will be lots of Maker madness to come. Yeah, if I want to just make some kind of small play to manage to rack, I'll probably just go with Vi or something. Or even just, you know, Veg or something like that. To diffuse the F a bit, but... we'll see. I might be missing something really obvious. That's... we'll just have to see what my opponent gives me positionally, and yeah, if we have something like an R to play through, we could have averters, perhaps. I feel like there is something in here, though. Just jot down some of the ideas we have so far, perhaps, which are not many. Overseat, perhaps? I don't know. Always have to kind of guess at this, especially now that we're back in the North American lexicon, where guessing at things is perhaps less successful when it comes to stabbing in the dark. I feel like there has to be some kind of really obvious play that's I'm just not seeing right now, because this looks so familiar, and this is the problem with playing sometimes, is that you look at racks where you tell yourself, I have seen this thing before. But at the same time, you don't know if you've seen it because you've stared at it and there was nothing, or because you've actually solved it as an anagram. And you definitely get to the point eventually where you see some high probability racks over and over again that are actually nothing, and you start to recognize them as actually nothing. But yeah, right now just waiting for my opponent to go. And until that point, I just guess we have a flexible amount of time to try to solve this. Now, the fact that my opponent is taking so long is not necessarily a good sign, because, okay, he's going to play OE, which means that It's a small place, so he might be close to something, but it also tells me that he was close to something in the direction of having too many vowels. And it's going to diffuse the F spot up top, as well as what I was thinking about with VIE. So, since all of that is down, I might just go veg and veg out for a bit. Oh, this looks so much like it's supposed to be something, though. Yeah, there's something with an I. It looks like varieties, but isn't, I think, or I might just be thinking of variates with 2 A's. Anyway, priority right now is just to dump the V, because the V is clearly the thing that is in the way. So but we should be practically guaranteed something coming out of this turn. And we're totally not. Like, that's just... if we have an I, we'll have something like Bearfits. Or Barfiest, maybe? I don't know. Bearfits for sure. I don't know if something can be Barfiest. Like, if you can be Barfier. If you're throwing up all over the place, are you Barfier? I don't know. There's something else in Bearfits as well. I know that it's one of those that has like a weird anagram. Oh, no. I know why I know it's Bearfits, because I'm a StarCraft player, and that's the word that you see when you see Firebats. That's why I know it. Unfortunately, Firebats is no good. But it's one of those combinations where you know it, because like if you find Firebats, then you know you play in Bearfits. And there's a bunch of stuff like that with things like Pokemon names as well, where you can get into some pretty interesting situations, some pretty fab situations, as you might say. I kind of like that. Keeps ERST, keeps things reasonably open. Yeah, W. It's not going to be great. But we would be, you know, doing something like WA, which still forks the board in terms of leaving lanes open for the S. So, we will see what can actually happen with this. And yeah, there's always a gnaw up here if we just want to dump one W, but we probably want to get rid of both if we can. It's not a bad spot for it though. But I like this idea. We are in a situation now where we are behind, so taking a risk like that when we are holding the S is something that I might need to do. Okay, except that spot's going to be down. So much for that idea. So I don't know if we have another place now to get rid of both W's gracefully. I might not. And that's going to be a huge 40-point play on my opponent's part, actually, and so we're in a bit of trouble now. Okay, this is getting closer to something. Sweater. Do we have a place for sweater? Yeah, we have sweater down here. I don't know if there's anything else in sweater, but sweater is definitely in there. Sweater also goes down here, but I would be worried about the E spot under US, and so I don't think I would do that. However, this is not too bad, except we would now have the R on a weird triple spot as well as a T spot. Very risky plays over there. 79 points for something that is less risky. I think I might go with that instead. I mean, you still have the potential for big comeback play on the R, but it's not as bad as leaving the triples and everything open like that. Like, it's just way too volatile, and I would rather keep board control, so. It's 10 points down, though, from this location, but this location is just so risky. Like, you've got potential for a massive consonant bomb here, comeback play here, triple here. There's just so much that can go wrong. Whose sweater was that? It was my sweater. It was the hockey sweater. It was the one we had to return to Eden's because it was bearing the emblem of our enemy, the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, what do we have? We have too many vowels now. This is the kind of rack that might be an exchange in the making. Unless we really need to defend a position somewhere. I feel like I am likely going to exchange out of this rack because it's just barely usable. You know, keep RIT or something. Emprise, interesting. Emprise. I wonder if I like that. Emprise. Don't spoil it in the chat. Don't look that up just yet, because I am... for one thing, Minibarf, not actually from Quebec, so the Maple Leafs are not my mortal enemy, but... But yeah, no, Sweater was my play. Emprise is not my play. Emprise is a 105-point play that I'm questioning. Well, if I don't challenge... 18 tiles left in the bag... Some comeback potential. Wonder if it's something my opponent is likely to know. And it likely is, because his knowledge is quite good. But... I mean, is it something he needs to play? Like, is it something that would come down as a desperation play? And I don't think so. But we're really in a bad situation if this stays. Sorry, trio, rather. No, I-O-R. I have to exchange, I think, and we have so much volatility this way, this way. You know, A plays under to Z. I might be dead after this play, actually. Just 105 points, my goodness. And yeah, Minibarf, it's really difficult, especially in the dictionary we're playing now, the North American dictionary, because in the North American dictionary, it's the traditional box rules where you lose your turn if you wrongfully challenge. In the other format we play with the International Dictionary, which we showed off earlier in this stream, you only hand over your opponent like a 5-point margin if you wrongfully challenge, because of precisely the problem that you mentioned, that there are so many words that are available that the player who has to make the decision to challenge is at a severe disadvantage. So in the international format, you know, there's much less of a penalty for trying to challenge a word that you don't know. I think I might have to take it. You still have Q, X, blank, J in the bag, and so lots of potential for trouble, but I think at this point, though, like, I mean, if it stays on, I lose the game, pretty much. But if I challenge and lose the challenge, I definitely lose the game. And so the thinking about this sort of stuff can be really tricky. Emprise. I think I have to take it. And I'm going to challenge... I'm sorry, not challenge, but exchange IIOO. Ugh, look at that. Still in a terrible spot. I think I'm probably dead this game. After that. And so, yeah, mini barf, even in the North American dictionary, people have been giving more and more thought to adopting the 5-point challenge as well. The leak. And look at that, whoever has the blank is just going to be able to tag an S on this thing. Yikes. La leak. I think I actually do know this. Because there's a bunch of the Q words that are like that. And the thing is, a player like this one that I'm playing against will be somebody who has at least looked at all of the 7-letter words with Q, I think. I have not looked at all of the 7-letter words with Q, but a lot of the people I play against will have. I'm in a terrible situation at this point. This is the remaining lane. If I don't take it, he'll certainly close it off. With the Q on the board, not much of a reason to take a U. Whoever draws the blank is going to have a great time with this S spot down here. Going to have an amazing time. So I think I just have to, do what I can to just draw out of this. Maybe something like about here to open up for about. But A in that position won't be too useful, and this does kind of block off the bottom. So not liking my position right now. Maybe even something like that. It does dangle over the triple, but at least it gives me a bit more room to work with, and it dumps the U. This is not great. I think I want to play off some tiles. Okay, this is almost something. I was close to drawing something good, I think, and the double N just has to get in the way here. Okay. So yeah, now the stuff that I've left on the board, feel free to look that up. We'll be looking it up afterwards anyway. Just not while I was still considering the challenge. So yeah, just going to see what my opponent does. I am very likely to lose at this point because I am about 2 bingos behind with only 8 tiles in the bag. X blank still unseen. And yeah, I mean, basically after the play is no longer in consideration, feel free to look it up in the chat or whatever. Also, I think they patched in this feature where if you actually observe on the Woogle's interface itself, you're now able to look things up by clicking on them, like you can actually see definitions. I'm going to open up like this, because it unduplicates the N and it gives me a potential spot down here. So we can recover some dignity, or not. Just watch, he's totally going to have the blank and have some kind of AS play here that's going to kill me and get above 500. We've had one blowout game after another tonight. I lost by about 150 points in my first game, and then I won by about 200 points my second game. And, ooh, yeah. Yeah, we're dead. But at least it kind of kills this idea because the blank has been spent. Robinian, I know for sure. I'm absolutely confident on that, so that's not going to be in question. Alright, so let's just play this out and see if we can lose with dignity. Mostly we'll be trying to avoid leaving any really dangerous spots for the X. So that's just the only thing we'll consider here when we're trying to play. Ainur, King of the Elves, yeah, pretty much. And hey, Grakowski, welcome. Yeah, this is the last of the 3 games we're playing live tonight, but I will be stepping over the analysis board quickly at the very end just to see what kind of spectacular misses we had. But I'm in a really bad losing situation in this game, and, you know, sometimes you just have to take that. Yeah, ordinarily I'd be considering something like new there, but the problem is the X. You could just follow up with EX and then score a crazy number of points. So might just have way too many vowels in general. Trying to look at anything through to V up here. But yeah, things are not looking great. If I have anything that would dump a few more tiles, that would be great. Like, there's no P anymore, so I can do something like Aeon. No, that would be vulnerable to the X idea as well, though. So I think that's not horrible. Normally when you're near the end of the game, even when you're losing, you do try to find sequences that spend your last rec in 2 turns or so, or at least allow you to outpace your opponent. Because right now, you know, my best way to lose slightly less badly is to try to spend my tiles before he has the opportunity to play off both the J and the X. But I don't think I'll be able to find that. So, because I don't see where I can go with my remaining tiles in 1 turn. And you were supposed to take a turn in Words with Friends against your aunt like 2 months ago? Yeah. And yeah, Minibarf, have fun. I do this stream fairly regularly during this time slot. And I might be streaming a tournament that I'm playing this weekend, depending on whether I can make that work with my schedule, because doing that plus viewer levels during the usual time might be a bit of a heavy load. But stay tuned, we may have more of this coming. So thanks for dropping by. So yeah, Burkowski, I don't really play Words with Friends, but Words with Friends, of course, originally started out as a Scrabble knockoff called Scrabulous that had legal action taken against it, and what they just wound up doing with Words with Friends was they just rearranged all the bonus squares, as you know, and so the meta is completely different, and a lot of Scrabble players just won't really bother with it because, you know, there's a lot of stuff with the Scrabble meta that makes you appreciate this board layout the more you play. Like, there's actually a really interesting dynamic of risk and reward when you play in the original Scrabble layout, where, you know, when you try to go for points, you leave vulnerable openings for your opponents and so on. It's actually very elegant in some ways that might not have been part of the intended design. But Grakowski, natural is not me. I don't think. I don't know where you're seeing the handle. I have one that looks like it, but it's not natural. So we'll see. I do have some old, like, Reddit and message board accounts and so on. Yeah, I don't think that's me. No, this is my only Twitch account, so. Kind of surprising that I would have a fanboy like that. But yeah, there was some reason. Yeah, that's actually quite strange. I should look into that. So thanks for alerting me to that. You know, in case there's some kind of international incident that arises from the confusion. You never know. Okay. Yeah, just really waiting for my opponent to play at this point. He doesn't really have that much he can do in 2 turns. He can play the J here, for instance. He can also play REX over here, which is probably one of his best moves right now. It's just that if he plays REX over there, he might actually wind up stuck with the J if I close off positions like this one here. So I think the idea right now is that he's trying to avoid situations where he plays one of those 2 big tiles, but then gets prevented from playing the other one. And yet he's just going to play it. So my first priority here is to look for some way to spend all my tiles. If I can't find that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to block this spot. Because I think that's the only place that he's able to go with the J currently. And so, you know, even if I just do something like arrow, that will probably just do the trick. I don't know if I want to do that necessarily, but I want to do something to take out that position. Unless there's another J play that I don't see, but I think he only spent that long on that turn because he knows that the J is blocked. Which means also that I can kind of do slow plays. I mean, I can also just do something like that. And I don't think he has a J spot. The reason that I'm keeping the A is because then I can finish with 11 points over here. And so we'll lose with dignity by barely clearing 300 points. Now, I actually got away with something this game. Stayings is not a valid word. So it tells me at the end of the game on my screen, you don't see it on the stream, but it tells me at the end of the game which invalid words successfully stayed on the board. And I actually got away with this over here. And yeah, we'll just go over the analysis board quickly to see if maybe I missed something better on that turn. Just kind of exchanging closing messages with my opponent after losing by over 200 points. And yeah, we'll step over the analysis quickly, and that will be the last thing we do on this stream. Also, Grokowski, I'm pretty sure I solved or understand the solution to the bird dog puzzle that I was stuck on the other day, but it was something that I was considering near the end of the stream, and I think I didn't try it because it seemed really kind of cheesy. Like, it didn't seem like a puzzle interaction, it seemed like a cheese interaction, if you know what I'm saying. And I don't know if that gives it away, but I am going to save my solution for presenting it on stream, but I think it works. It's just that it totally looks like a cheese, and yeah, you know what I'm saying? I think so. But we'll take a look at this one and see how we're doing. Let's just go to the examining board and take a look at the post-game analysis. So first turn over here, I was looking at consonant plays mostly, and oh, I didn't know Simas. If I actually did know that word, that would have been very clearly what I would have gone with, I think. But it's a lot of those small blocky words that are really difficult sometimes. Interestingly enough, the engine favors playing off one S rather than keeping both S's. Because, yeah, I kind of had the right line of thinking in that double S is not that good for me. But spending the S is actually valued marginally higher, about 2 points higher, because you're setting yourself up for a much better play. Okay, my opponent's first rack, he has some stuff like Kendo, etc. Kind of interesting that he is going to play that to keep still a very consonant-heavy combo, but keeping N and G together isn't terrible. Keeping G can be quite bad if you don't have the N, but the two tiles go together decently. And yeah, Gronkowski, I was kind of surprised to find that some initial attempts to come up with a name for the bot, like Quixotic bot or Quixotic bot, depending on which pronunciation you're going with, were already taken. Possibly they've been taken by the impersonator that you mentioned. Oh my goodness, look at this. Syntagms. And I actually know that too. Fantastic anagram of gymnasts. Yeah, just going to send my opponent a quick message telling him about this because look at that. That's spectacular. Yeah, I actually do know that. It's impossible to see in a game situation unless you know the gymnast anagram, but I actually do know that from linguistics because, you know, something can be syntagmatic, syntactic, synchronic. You know, it's buried like way in the back of my memory. But having that as a set with gymnast is a pretty fancy one to remember because usually, you know, one of the ways that people find the really difficult words to remember is by studying pairs like that. So a little over a year ago, before the pandemic really kicked in, there was one that the Scrabble people I know were circulating all the time, which was that coronavirus is an anagram of carnivorous. And I remember like that observation just being worked into the ground and everyone being sick of it even before the pandemic was underway. But yeah, he's going to play Geoid there. And a lot of plays we didn't consider because I was trying to get rid of T and V and not really keen on keeping that. As you can see in the evaluation, there aren't really good plays coming out of here, and I'm decently happy with VATS. I was kind of thinking about closing up the position at that point anyway. A lot of things that my opponent can kind of do to manage to rack, but what did he in fact go with here? Fling, which is really interesting, very risky position up there. And scores decently, though. I did not have anything here. Okay, I was going to look up Griswold earlier. Yeah, Gronkowski is not showing me necessarily everything that's possible, but the engine is able to iterate through a lot of the possibilities, especially the highest scoring possibilities. So we're basically looking at the bot's eye view. Because there is a bot that plays on this service, on Wiggles, and it is an extremely dangerous one. And so yeah, Griswold was not good anyway, so we didn't have anything in there. And so yeah, we basically are just stepping over the game I just played and looking at what the bot would have seen if it were playing in that position. And we'll find a lot of the plays that are high scoring, but the bot on this engine doesn't consider positional strategy. Like, it's not running a simulation that's looking ahead to future turns. So there are AI engines that do that, But because this bot was kind of made for blitz play, it just does like a very naive search of the highest scoring possibilities, and it enumerates a certain number of them, and it just tries to score as much as possible every turn. Not just the face value of the tiles, but the score weighted by the value of what you keep on your rack. So, for example, you know, if the bot is suggesting something like Poco for 31, its internal evaluation is 47, and the reason why the internal evaluation is so much higher than the face value of the play is because it regards DEIS as an excellent combination to keep as an investment in future turns. So that's how it does it. Whereas if you look at plays that keep really bad tiles, then the evaluation would actually be lower than the face value. And so there's quite a lot of theory behind this. I missed a 9-letter play, but, you know, it's very rare that I'll find a 9-letter play. I have found a few on stream, actually, but it's very rare that I'll even see something like Veritates. So let's take a look at that. And yeah, the thing is, it's not even a plural, it's Veritatis. Veritas and Veritatis. So that's the reason I wouldn't know it, is because it's not a pluralization of an 8-letter word. It's something that only exists as a 9-letter word. And that's what the bot sees, that's not what I can see. Oh, look at that, Persids. But my opponent finds crisped, so that's okay. And it scores the same. Persids would really be kind of nice, though. I don't know if I can quite remember what that is. I thought it was a fish. It sounded like a fish, like a perch. And it is a perch. Yeah, that's what it is. Offbeats spends 6 tiles, but actually spends them in a way that scores a ton of points. I would not have even thought of looking at that. Because, you know, you have OF there at the start. You often think, oh, OF at the start, that's just a closed position. I'm not going to do anything there. But again, this is the kind of stuff the engine sees, and which some of the top players could probably see as well, but they would kind of need that spark of inspiration to look for this position, which, believe me, is not easy. So we found a reasonable play there with Stab. Lots of possibilities for my opponent, and he's going to go with Tithe, which, as you can see, the highest value plays for the bot don't consider the fact that I would have a massive counterplay down here, potentially. So my opponent would play something like that, which scores marginally lower, but is more defensive, because it doesn't give away the triple. I did in fact find the best way to try to get myself out of the W situation. The engine also does kind of consider just spending the S to get rid of the W's, but that would not have been a good position to do it, so I think I did what I could with a bit of a bad situation there. Yeah, undue is pretty reasonable. The engine once again considers some things that are positionally much more dangerous. Undue is the best safe play. We found Sweater, and once again I decided to take a position that was 10 points lower than the maximum because I found the position to be more defensive. And it didn't end up saving me anyway, but prize for 105 is good, so I guess maybe we should have taken the lower location, except, yeah, I guess we should have. That's just the kind of thing you lose to sometimes. Exchange IIOO is actually evaluated as the second best play, but that's because I missed the opportunity to play Torai over here, which I should have thought about looking at, but it's very hard sometimes to visualize the II combo, even when you are trying to dump off too many vowels. Lalik, indeed the best play, nearly 80 points, even only spending 6 tiles, because the Q is on that location where the Q by itself is worth 60. You get a times 2 off the letter, times 3 off the word score. So that's easily the best play. Also some pretty interesting parallels down here with stuff like Coelia, but, you know, of course he's taking the points, of course he's taking the position. Main thing that's a risk with something like Lalique is just an AS play down in this location, which would also come back with about 50-something. It would have to be AS using the blank, though. So as soon as my opponent draws the blank out of this, as he did, this was really kind of a guaranteed blowout. So yeah. Yeah. Not much we can do here. I missed some of the other decent positions. But yeah, I don't know if playing Bout was the right idea. I guess I was trying to invest in opening up on the left side. It is evaluated as one of the better available plays. And at this point I need scoring opportunities, right? So I think that's defensible. And my opponent does not end up taking a boar, he ends up taking just... yeah, because a boar would be something that's potentially open to counterplay, and so he's sort of defaulting to playing in closed positions at that point. I have nothing here. I actually think my play is fine. Like, nothing here is going to score well, and I need opportunities at this point. It's just that I didn't draw the kind of tiles I needed in order to take advantage of that. Lots of possibilities for my opponent. He found the best one, which is Robinia, but also a good spot for Amorini. And you can see also that, look at this, that these plays are pretty good, but having drawn the blank, the AS play in the position I was talking about scores 62 points and is evaluated very, very well. So even if he didn't draw into a high-scoring bingo like that, drawing the blank at all would completely seal the deal there. So just a very good drawing sequence for my opponent near the end, and just very good plays in general, finding words like Emprise and Lalique. And yeah, we're just sitting on too many vowels at the end. At that point, we just played for the J block. And it is a successful block. Oh, I also just missed the opportunity to play off the remaining tiles, but that's okay, because since I know I'm blocking the J, I actually score more points with the sequence that I did find. Because, yeah, this scores 6, but we ended up scoring 19 between 2 plays. Because I knew my opponent had no spot, so yeah, that was it for that. We lost spectacularly. This must be one of the highest games of the night, actually, in the club. So 1 win out of 3 games tonight. And let's see how we did. Yeah, I think that actually was the high score for tonight, 539. We got one of the highest scores with a 501 earlier. But a couple of 500 games in the club over the course of this session. And yeah, none of the games were close today. It wasn't tight positional stuff. It was just, in every game, one player blasting the other out of the sky. Grakowski, these are people I am familiar with. I have met them in person, and I have played games with them physically before, as I have with a pretty good number of people in North America. I did used to play over-the-board tournaments, and over-the-board tournaments were mostly just killed by the pandemic because you have so many senior citizens who are exchanging, you know, unclean objects with their hands, right? So it was one thing that was pretty much immediately wrecked in terms of the last 2 years of national championships being canceled and everything moving online. And that's part of the reason why this platform was put together by some of the veterans of the competitive scene. Was we did have an online platform previously, which was an old Romanian website written in Java, which is still functional, but the UI is not very nice. And yeah, over the past year, some of the top players have put this platform together with the intention of kind of creating a healthy online tournament culture as a bit of a stopgap while over-the-board play is completely impossible. So I have played with a lot of the people in this club in person before, and we've met. And what you'll notice with a lot of the other few people who are streaming this game as well is that most of them have known each other in person on the tournament circuit. So that's going to be pretty much it for this stream. And yeah, I'm just going to search around for maybe a raid, but we have few enough people that I don't know if I'll bother. So I'll just make that determination depending on who's on. But failing that, we will be back with Mario Maker in the impossible time slot over the next few days. I don't know if I'll do it today, but definitely for the usual viewer level spot in the weekend. And we may be playing a Scrabble tournament on stream as well during human hours. But I don't know yet if I'll be streaming that. I might not be. So thanks for dropping by. And hope this was an enjoyable experience that was somewhat coherently explained. And until next time, thanks for watching.